Virgin Most Powerful Radio, sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.
And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo. It's great to be with you today to do this thing about defending, sharing the faith. And I got a couple of really big announcements, at least for me. I want everybody to know, and jot this down if you can, that I am announcing the beginning of the Apocrypha Apocalypse. And what I mean by that is I'm starting a new venture in trying to get the information out to our separated brethren that their Bible's missing 7 Old Testament books, which they call Apocrypha, but they're actually Deuterocanon. They're inspired scripture. And I've written a lot of books on it. I've done several interviews. But what I did was I launched a new page on my website, handsonapologetics.com. If you go there, go up to the top, you'll see a tab that says Apocrypha Apocalypse. Click on that, and that page is going to have, I'm going to be putting out new videos. I'm going to have free material up there. You have links to all my debates, things like that. And also corresponding to that, I also have a new channel that just rolled out on YouTube called Apocrypha Apocalypse. Let's go to the search engine, just check it out. And I'm going to be putting out videos, critique videos. I'm going to maybe look at and debunk some of the videos out there on this issue. We're really taking it to the next step, not just in print, but also on social media. So I really appreciate it if you could help support the initiative. Apocrypha Apocalypse, check it out on YouTube. If you can, please subscribe, do the stuff that you do, because that helps visibility, and since I'm just starting off, I could use all the friends I can get. So anyway, I'm really psyched about that, because I have so much material I want to share with people. It's just impossible to get it all out, and especially in a format that people will check it out. And now with COVID, everybody's on YouTube, the internet. This is a very important means to do it. Another really quick announcement. I am going to be appearing on the Sam Shamoon podcast tonight at 7 Eastern Time. Sam is a evangelical Protestant. He specializes in the field of Islamic apologetics. So he knows Islam like the back of his hands, and his demeanor is very combative. However, over the course of the last few years, he's really discovered Catholicism and Orthodoxy, and he's becoming a lot more Catholic friendly than he used to be. And so I got an invite to jump on his podcast and talk about those Old Testament books tonight at 7. And I think this is the first time I'm actually going on a podcast that is most likely going to have Protestants as the audience. So please keep me in your prayers. The other thing, too, I want to announce is that we have a great show in store for us today. Why? Because we have Sue Ellen Browder coming on, and we're going to talk about sex, namely sex and the Catholic Feminist, new choices for a new generation. I am really psyched about our interview, and we're going to talk about how feminism has become hijacked by the sexual revolution, and what's the Catholic solution to this problem. So she's going to be coming up on the other side of the break. In the meantime, we're going to go through our finding of the fallacy, which today's fallacy is the poisoning the well, and also meet an early church father. Today's early church father is an interesting one because it's an epitaph. It's a gravestone. And the epitaph is of Abercius. So lots of really cool stuff in store for us. I am psyched for the program today. And as always, let me give my shout outs. I want to welcome all of you watching live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and all the other social media platforms we use. Hello, everybody. And I also want to welcome all of you listening on radio around the United States and also via podcast around the world, either through our handy-dandy phone app, the Virgin Most Powerful Radio phone app, or through our flagship website, which is virginmostpowerfulradio.org. So welcome aboard, folks. It's great to be with you today. Like I said, lots of great stuff happening, and got a great show in store for us. I can't wait to jump in. So why don't we do that? We'll start with the Finding the Fallacy. Today's Finding the Fallacy is the poisoning the well. And poisoning the well fallacy, now somebody correct me in the chat room if I'm wrong, but I believe that term was actually coined by St. John Henry Cardinal Newman. During a debate, his opponent argued that Catholic priests are trained to lie. And when he responded to it, saying that, of course, no, in seminary we're taught to tell the truth, no Catholic should lie, the person came up to the podium and said, well, what do you expect a liar to say, basically? To which John Henry Newman pointed out that he has poisoned the well. In other words, the only way in which Cardinal Newman could have vindicated himself has been poisoned. There's nothing he could say, because if he denies it, it affirms the accusation. And if he affirms it, well, he affirms the accusation. He basically has cut off any way of rejoinder on that ground. So that is our Finding the Fallacy today, the poisoning of the well. Does happen. You have to be careful, be on the lookout for it. Also, let's jump to the Meet the Early Church Father for today, and it is the Epitaph of Abercius, which was made sometime around 180-200, very early on. Abercius was the composer of his own epitaph. He was the bishop of Hierapolis. 2 fragments of the epitaph are now in the Lateran Museum in Rome, and it was discovered near Hierapolis in 1883 by the Scot archaeologist William Ramsay. The same archaeologist had discovered a year earlier an epitaph of a certain Alexander, which was in a style very imitative of Abercius, and which fortunately bore the date that's convertible to 216 AD. With the aid of the epitaph of Alexander and a 4th century biography of Abercius, it's possible to reconstruct the complete text of the epitaph, although only about 20% of the text is contained on 2 fragments. So what I think I'll do is I'll just read the epitaph for you and kind of point out some of the Christian imagery. I'm sure all of you will pick up on some of the things he alludes that a Catholic would immediately recognize, but probably a pagan wouldn't have a clue what he's talking about. He says, a citizen of the prominent city, I erected this. While I lived, that I might have a resting place for my body, Abercius is my name, a disciple of the chaste shepherd. He who feeds his flock on the mountains and in the fields, who has great eyes surveying everywhere, who taught me the faithful writings of life. He sent me to Rome to contemplate a kingdom. So, of course, right there we see the chaste shepherd, of course, is Jesus Christ, who feeds his flocks on the mountains, who has great eyes surveying everywhere. This points to Jesus being omniscient, all-knowing, who taught me the faithful writings of life, namely the Scriptures. And he sent him to Rome to contemplate a kingdom. Now, the kingdom isn't the Roman Empire. The kingdom is the church, which is centered in Rome. Okay, let's continue with the epitaph. And I beheld a queen in a golden robe and golden sandals. There I saw people who had a resplendent seal. And I saw the plain of Syria and all its cities, even Nismus, beyond the Euphrates, and everywhere I had associates, having Paul as a companion. So the resplendent seal most likely is referring to the sealing of confirmation. And also notice it's from Rome that he's able to spot all these Christians throughout the known world. And he says, having Paul as a companion, obviously that's an allusion to the Apostle Paul. Everywhere faith led the way, and everywhere set food before me, fish from the fountain, mighty and pure, which a chaste virgin caught. So what's he alluding to there? He's alluding to the real presence in the Eucharist. Christ is the fish, the ichthus, which is an acronym for Christ, who was caught by the chaste virgin, who of course is the Blessed Virgin Mary, and gave this to his friends to eat always, having good wine, giving mixed wine with bread. That's actually an interesting allusion because, as you know from very early on, it's the practice of the Eucharistic celebration that you don't just drink wine, but wine that's mixed with water. And so he actually alludes to that. He continues, standing by, I, Abercius, ordered this to be inscribed. Truly, I was in my 72nd year. May everyone who is in accord with this and understands it pray for Abercius. Nor indeed shall any man place another in my tomb, and if he do, he shall place in the Roman treasury 2,000 pieces of gold, and with my deserving fatherland Hierapolis 1,000 pieces of gold. And of course, right here, of course, he kind of says, look, if you understand what I'm saying, i.e. you're a Christian, he asked them, please pray for me while I'm dead. So this is also great evidence for the practice of praying for the saints. So that is our early church father today, who just so happens to be an epitaph, the Epitaph of Abuses. All right, coming up on the other side of the break, we're going to be talking with Sue Ellen Browder about her new book, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, coming up. You're listening to Hands on Apologetics. Stay tuned, folks. More to come at the other side of the break.
Join VMPR live on YouTube September 12th, 2020 for our latest free conference, The Ultimate Challenge. This exclusive virtual event will feature a brand new talk from Jesse Romero, How Apologetics Brought Me Back to Faith, plus never-before broadcast video presentations from Dr. Scott Hahn, Father Mitch Pacwa, and the late, great Father Benedict Groeschel. Go to vmpr.org to register now and get ready to face the ultimate challenge.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby?
She is? Will it be a boy? Or will it be a girl?
We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor?
Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-Life Across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Now, back to Hands on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody, to Hands On Apologetics. I'm really excited about this next guest because we're going to talk about a topic that has really fascinated me, and that is feminism. You know, back in ancient Rome, if you looked at the status of women at that time and how Christianity has elevated the status of women, you would expect that feminism and Catholicism would go hand in hand, and it does. But something strange happened along the way where essentially the sexual revolution has co-opted the movement. And that's where our guest comes in, Sue Ellen Browder. She's a award-winning freelance writer and speaker who has addressed members of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women and has appeared on hundreds of radio and television shows, including the Today Show, Oprah, EWTN Nightly News, Fox News. She's published hundreds of articles in many national magazines and newspapers such as Reader's Digest, Women's Day, National Catholic Register, and Cosmopolitan. She's the author of Subverted: How I Helped the Sexual Revolution Hijack the Women's Movement by Ignatius Press, and also her new book, and I want to hold this up, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, which explains how the F word, feminism, got hijacked by pro-abortion forces. And Sue Ellen, welcome to Hands On Apologetics.
It's delightful to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, I have to confess something. I heard you a while back on Crest in the Afternoon, and I caught the second half of the program, and I didn't catch your name, and I didn't catch the name of your book, and that was the Subverted book. And I thought, boy, I have to have her on the program. So lo and behold, I have you on the program. So this is wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's delightful to be here.
Yeah, so, your book is so compelling. In fact, I'd love to have you back on. We could talk even more about Subverted. But with your latest book, you share the story in your introduction about how you became pro-life. Would you mind starting there, maybe?
Right. Well, I used to write for Cosmopolitan magazine. I wrote for Cosmopolitan magazine in the 70s and 80s, 1970s and 80s. And it wasn't until I became a Catholic in 2003. I'm a late bloomer. I didn't become a Catholic till I was 57 years old. And it was after I became a Catholic and started listening to women on the other side of the divide, of the pro-life divide, that I realized that abortion and contraception were actually anti-woman, not pro-woman. And it was the day in my book, we talk about the day that I really changed my heart. And it was I went to the Walk for Life in San Francisco with a friend of mine who had had 3 abortions. And she was going to be silent no more. And as we crossed the Golden Gate Bridge, she was having a bit of a panic attack. And she was also telling me what happened when she had these abortions, what a terrible experience it was. And then I got to that Walk for Life, and I saw all these people marching. I'd never seen anything like this before. Everybody was so happy, and they were praying, and they were singing, and they had all these, and I thought, I've missed it. The media have missed this story, and I'm one of the ones that missed it. And it was at that moment that I saw that the pro-life movement was the authentic women's movement of the 21st century, and actually the 20th century. And that's how this book began.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? How is it that the media has missed such, important development in feminist history?
Well, that's why I'm an investigative reporter. I trained at the University of Missouri School of Journalism, so I was a good reporter. I fell from grace immediately when I went to New York City and started writing lies for Cosmopolitan. So and so I had to come back around. It's taken me many years, but that's the question I asked. And a lot of people, I worked on Cosmo. I was actually on staff in the articles department. And the thing that I saw in 1971 was that the sexual revolution and the feminist revolution and the feminist movement were two radically separate movements. Helen Gurley Brown at Cosmopolitan would have loved for Betty Friedan to write for the magazine, but Betty Friedan, who had launched the second wave feminism with her book The Feminine Mystique, called Cosmo quite obscene and quite horrible. She said that it said that everything about a woman was about bed, bed, bed. And so you had a conflict there, the sexual revolution on one side and the women's movement on the other. How did they get joined together? Well, after I became a Catholic, people began to ask me that question, and I says, you know what? I don't know. And then one of my very, very astute friends said, was it abortion? And I'm like, oh yeah, I think so. And so I started to do the research. And the research in this book, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, and also my previous book, has never been reported anywhere because I had to get into the National Organization for Women's private papers to find out what happened, how abortion got inserted into the women's movement, and you have to get their permission to get in. And so the same friend that took me to the Walk for Life, I said, well, they're never going to let me into their private papers. She says, try it, they might. I had got permission within a week. So I was able to get into the private papers of the National Organization for Women to see how abortion got inserted into the women's movement and what happened that night. And so that's what this book shows you, is how did we get to the point where the sexual revolution and the women's movement got so tightly joined together? Well, it began, the genesis moment was November 18th, 1967, in the Chinese room of the Mayflower Hotel, when the National Organization for Women was having its second convention, and about 100 people, just a little over 100 people, gathered to draw up their political Bill of Rights. And they had many rights in there that we all agree on. Equal pay for equal work. Pregnant women should not be fired for being pregnant. When I was fired for being pregnant in 1970, that was very common in those days. You could only work for like 5 months and then you had to quit. So people have forgotten how bad it was then. So that all of these rights were good things, equal pay for equal work. Pregnant women shouldn't be fired for being pregnant. A married woman should be able to apply for credit in her own name. But there was one little snake in the woodpile, if you will, and that was the abortion rights. And they fought over that right until almost midnight. And so how did the media miss it? There were no media people in that room that night. So they fought over that till almost midnight, and 1/3 of these very fervent feminists who were the founders of the women's movement in the 60s walked out of the National Organization for Women and later resigned over the abortion vote. So there were pro-life women in that room, pro-life feminists in that room that night, and they were saying things like, "I'm against murder." I mean, this is so they walked out, and that was the moment that when once they inserted abortion, only 57 people that night voted to insert abortion as a demand in the women's movement, and the next Monday morning, Betty Friedan, who was a great propagandist, stands in front of the media in a press conference, and she says she's speaking for all women across America. And the press bought it. The Washington Post bought it, and they even said that the National Organization for Women has accepted the sexual revolution of our century. So at that moment, that's when they were joined together, and then it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
it's amazing.
And you found this? Was this part of that private library? Because I've never heard that before.
No. You will never hear it because this is the first time it's been reported. I reported in Subverted. Now, Subverted, I've got a chapter in there where you actually go into that room and get to live that moment, and that's one of I think that's chapter 5 in Subverted, and that's one of the most interesting chapters in the whole book. That's why I wrote that book. But then when I sent this history to Ignatius, my publisher, they wanted, how does an old Cosmo girl become a Catholic? so I had to include that conversion story. So Subverted includes the conversion story. Sex and the Catholic Feminist is only 100 pages long. It's almost a pamphlet. I wrote it as almost a pamphlet, and so people can get this history very quickly.
Yeah, it's great, and it's so readable too. I just devoured it just over a course of a couple of days. Was that now that meeting? Was it set up to do that, or was this purely a quirk of fate?
It was set up to draw up that Bill of Rights. What the women in the room did not know was that Betty Friedan had been conned, if you will. She'd been convinced by two men. One of them we've heard of, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, who was an abortionist who later became a Catholic. Most people have heard of him. Most Catholics have heard of him. The other was Larry Lader, L-A-D-E-R. These were the two co-founders of what's now NARAL Pro-Choice America. And they were friends with Betty Friedan, and they had convinced her that she needed, well, we don't know why they convinced her completely that they needed this abortion right in their women's movement. But we think partly it was because they told her that she wouldn't get all her other bills, other rights passed by Congress if she didn't include this abortion right in the package. Because remember, this is a time when women were being fired for being pregnant. So if you could tell the corporate America, it's okay, boys, she'll be on the pill, and if she, the pill fails, which it does, she'll be able to get an abortion. Then maybe it made all those other rights, equal pay for equal work, all of those other rights, more palatable to corporate America. But that's just kind of a guess. All we know is, what we do know for sure, is that Bernard Nathanson and Larry Lader, the two co-founders of NARAL Pro-Choice America, convinced Betty Friedan to insert the abortion right in the women's movement. It wasn't before those two men convinced her that she didn't think that abortion was that important to women.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing that no reporter, after the meeting decided to check with the third that eventually left.
Well, now this is an interesting thing. That third of women who eventually left, a number of them went on to found an organization called WHEEL, the Women's Equity Action League. WHEEL had lawyers on staff. We'll get back to this in just a minute.
Oh, yeah, I hear the music. Yes, we're chatting with Sue Ellen Browder about her book, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, and really compelling stuff. Stay tuned, folks. More to come on the other side of the break. You're listening to Hands on Apologetics.
Hi, this is Jesse Romero from the Terry and Jesse Show, also from Jesus 911. Let's face it, we all need to use the internet, but we need screen accountability. Why? Pornography is a huge problem, especially on the internet. And every time we tap into the internet, we get bombarded with images and temptations that degrade our humanity. So we need Covenant Eyes to block these pornographic sites and advertisements from infiltrating our lives. Covenant Eyes helps us take custody of our eyes and custody of our intellect. So I recommend you go to covenanteyes.com and type in the promo code VMPR to support the network. Protect yourself and your family from the imminent threats on the internet. www.covenanteyes.com, code VMPR, live porn free. Thank you for listening to Virgin's Most Powerful Radio. Thank you. God bless you. Keep the faith.
Jesus said to the apostles in Luke chapter 10, "Whoever listens to you listens to me, and whoever rejects you rejects me." According to St. Boniface, in her voyage across the ocean of this world, the Church is like a great ship being pounded by the waves of life's different stresses. Our duty is not to abandon ship, but to keep her on course. May our Lord help us remain ever faithful to His Church, to aid and defend her.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. We are chatting with Sue Ellen Browder about her book, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, available through Ignatius Press. And right before the break, Sue, we were talking about the third of the feminists who walked out of the meeting when now embraced a pro-abortion stand, and you were talking about them forming a group called Wheel in Ohio, in Cleveland, and the Wheel has almost disappeared. Well, it has disappeared. They disbanded in 1989, but when I was in Cleveland at a pro-life convention, even there they hadn't heard of Wheel. And I hadn't heard of it either. But it was founded by Betty Boyer, Elizabeth Betty Boyer, who was a pro-life lawyer. She went home after that meeting in the Chinese room, and she was in despair over that abortion vote. She said an unborn baby is a sacred trust. This is one of the original feminists in America in the 60s. She resigned from now after what she described as a shouting match. So this was passionate stuff, and she went back and founded this Wheel. Now, people have not even heard of it. Wheel's membership never exceeded about 10,000 people, and yet they did a remarkable amount of good work. They helped to open up academia to women. They stopped newspapers from running help-wanted male and help-wanted female ads, where all the good jobs were male and all the bad jobs were women, low-paying jobs were women. They made it illegal. They fought in the courts to make it illegal. In some states, it was illegal for a woman to serve on a jury. Can you believe that? That was just in the 60s. And so they fought to make sure that a woman could serve on a jury, and they also lobbied to get the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 passed, which made it illegal to fire a woman for being pregnant. So they did a lot of good work. But why haven't we heard of them? Well, first of all, be honest with you, I talked to Betty Boyer's niece, and she said that they really didn't want the publicity, because this was a time, these women were very well employed. These were lawyers and people, they didn't want their employers to know they were among those crazy women out there marching in the streets. So when the pro-abortion feminists wanted the publicity, the pro-life feminists said, let them have it. And so to some extent, they themselves were kind of underground. They just didn't want that publicity. And the media just did not ever. Remember, that Chinese room was a closed-door meeting. Nobody ever knew about it. And so when did Now put their papers in the Schlesinger Library? I'm not sure. But it took me a long time to find the minutes of that meeting. And guess where I found them? On the Internet. Wow. That's funny.
What I found in those papers were women who had walked out of the meeting and resigned and had written resignation letters, and they told what had happened. So these letters were written within 1 to 2 days after the meeting, so they're very clear on what exactly happened, and we can reconstruct it from what they said.
Yeah. Now, in your opinion, was that a good move? Because essentially by, cutting themselves off from the organization, they can no longer influence it, so now becomes totally pro-abortion.
Well, partly, though, now kind of kicked some of those women out, too. There were some Feminists for Life. The two women that founded Feminists for Life were in the National Organization for Women, and they were kicked out because they were anti-abortion. So the people who became in charge there were very fiercely pro-abortion, and anybody who wasn't in the group, if you will, was discarded. Just like a baby is discarded now, right?
Yeah. So they cleaned house, so to speak.
They cleaned house
once they got the approval.
Yeah, they did. And then, as you'll see in Sex and the Catholic Feminist, it went worse. Because where did all this sexual politics come in? Well, then you had a woman named Kate Millett, who a woman in the New York Times recently said, Kate Millett was the one that made us feminists. Well, Kate Millett was a former Catholic who hated her father, who hated God, and she wrote this book called Sexual Politics, and everybody bought into it. And she misinterpreted Catholicism completely. I read something the other day, and I thought of Kate, because she just hated her dad. He was an alcoholic. She thought he had left the family. Actually, her mother kicked him out, it turns out. But I read this quote, and I thought of Kate. Fools and maniacs do exist, but it's disturbing when they impose their vision on all of us and present it as that of the whole world. And that's what she did. And people bought into it, and we're still fighting that false understanding of Catholicism that she perpetrated. She said, patriarchy has God on its side. She's the one. Wow. She's the one that gave us this word. I mean, we had the word patriarchy before, but she gave it that evil. The patriarchy is she gave it that evil twist. Another thing I want to say in this book, Sex and the Catholic Feminist, is we talk about how propaganda works, and propaganda is not just a bunch of lies, so you can't spot it easily. It's half truth, limited truth, and truth out of context. So it's twisted truth, as you well know as an apologist. That's what it is. There's always a little bit of truth in those lies, and you have to pry out the lies from the truth. And that's what this book does, Sex and the Catholic Feminist. We untie all those knots that have got our culture tied up.
Yeah, and what was shocking, although I knew it from your other book, is that this was not happenstance. There was collusion on the part of multiple different entities to broadcast a specific message.
Yes, exactly. Propaganda was used. People now they're beginning to wake up. When, this concept of fake news, everybody finally begins to realize it's out there. But propaganda is a very highly sophisticated science. Actually, it really began in this country during World War I, when the government was trying to convince Americans to get into the war. And they had a propaganda mill, if you will, a propaganda office. And after World War I, the people that were in that propaganda office went on to, one of the founder of public relations went on to tell people how to use propaganda to sell stuff. And you can sell not only products with propaganda. We all know if it's just so-called advertising, but you can also sell ideas. You see, and it's a very sophisticated science. So for example, how do you sell? This fellow who is Edward Bernays, wrote a book called Propaganda. Are we there? Hello? I think we've lost our connection. Gary?
Sue, okay, gotcha. Sue, this is Terry Barber. I understand we got a bad connection. Are you there, Sue? Hello, Sue. Okay, so you don't need me? Okay. Okay. Hello, Sue. Sue, this is Terry Barber. I'm the next show, and I understand we had a connection break with Gary. How are you?
I'm fine.
Sue, I read your book early when it came out, so I'm a little familiar with your book, and I would just say until Gary comes back, I'm happy to facilitate here. So God bless you. And you were saying about how people can persuade people. I've heard you say from World War II. Why don't you World War I?
Propaganda?
Yeah, propaganda. Let's continue on that.
Okay. Edward Bernays, who was a nephew of Sigmund Freud, was one of the founder of public relations. In the 1920s, he wrote a book, a favorable book on propaganda. He thought propaganda was a really good thing, okay? And he said, how do you sell... Well, we were talking about how subtle propaganda can be and how sophisticated. So how do you sell pianos to the middle class? That's what he was talking about. Because a piano is a pretty high-ticket item. You sell the piano to the middle class by selling the music room. You have all these magazines and newspapers and that show these very rich people that have these beautiful homes, and they all have a music room in their homes. And once you sell the middle class on the idea that it would be very high class and wonderful for me to have a music room, then they'll just naturally think, I got to have a piano. So how do you sell beautiful clothes, makeup, hair products, singles travel, abortion, contraceptives, all the things that are on the magazine, the women's magazines, these glossy women's magazines? You sell them by selling the Cosmo lifestyle.
Right.
And once you sell a young lady on the Cosmo lifestyle, she'll just naturally think, I got to have all this other stuff.
It's amazing. It's so true. So true. Now, how can people get your book? Because I really like to plug that book. Is it for Ignatius Press, is what I recall. Is that true?
Okay. You can also get it on Amazon.
Good.
Now they're back in.
Good.
And you can also get it on, if you want a discount, some people are having book clubs on it. You can go to Catholic.market.
Perfect.
And plug in sex. Just Google Catholic.market sex, and it'll pop right up, and you can get it at a big discount.
I love it. I love it. Catholic Market 6. Okay. Well,
that's S-E-X.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. We're going to take a quick break. I hear the bumper music. We'll be back, and I hope Gary will be back with you too. But happy to fill in. You're listening to the Gary Machuda Show on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Don't turn the dial. We got more to share with you. And then up next, after this show, the Terry and Jesse Show on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. We'll be right back. This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And here's an easy way to support us by going to smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center or Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And when you log in your Amazon account and you purchase products, a portion of it will go right back in supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And it doesn't cost you a dime. I want to thank you ahead of time because that supports us year-round. May God bless you and your family.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
Actually, it's Terry Barber filling in for Gary. I'm a pinch hitter. I feel like I'm back in baseball. And this is Practical Apologetics, and we have Susan Ellen Browder, A New Feminism, Including God and Man, is our title of the show. And Sue, we're talking about fake news and how we're manipulating people. It seems like it's only getting worse, and so your book is really going to be a wake-up call for a lot of us. Please continue what you're sharing, because for most of us, we're looking like, what? Are you kidding me? This is all about manipulation. I'm all ears, so continue, please.
Okay, well, listen, as I say, I wrote for Cosmopolitan for 20 years, and what people don't realize, sometimes people think fake news is not contrived. Mm-hmm. At Cosmo, Helen Gurley Brown, who was the editor in the had a list of rules on how to lie to make up stories.
Wow.
So these stories about these young women, though, this was in the early 70s, these women were, these stories about these young women having these wonderful sex lives and jumping into bed all the time and going to Europe and on their, all of these lovely stories were entirely fictional.
Unbelievable.
So for example, Helen, here's some examples. How does she use, I said this is using language not as a tool of truth, but as a weapon of lies. Right. And she says, when this is in this list, I found this list in the garage, in a box in the garage a couple of years ago.
Good.
And so I can read directly from it. I kept it for 50 years.
Well, God bless you. This is important. I love it.
She says, and so these stories are very convincing. She says, when fabricating stories about ordinary women, whom she called civilians, I guess we were in the Army, and the rest of you guys are civilians.
I get it.
Helen writes in her rule, try to locate some of the buildings, restaurants, nightclubs, parks, streets, as well as entire case histories in cities other than New York, even if you deliberately have to plant them elsewhere. Most writers live in New York City. 92% of our readers do not. So by making up all these stories and planting them in places like Cleveland and Des Moines and Albuquerque, you made the sexual revolution's false mores look a lot more widespread than they actually were.
Wow.
You see?
Yes.
And, John Chrysostom, 4th century church father, said the problem with evil is that it is usually disguised as goodness.
Yep.
So this looks like fun. I mean, what could be wrong with this? These women are having these wonderful times. The trouble is, they didn't really exist. The Cosmo Girl was a persona. And here's the problem. After the Cosmo became the most successful women's magazine in the country, all the other women's magazines began to follow suit. And so now this and it's now it's everywhere. It's on the internet. It's in the movies. It's on television. It's everywhere. This became universal, actually.
Wow.
And the reason why I wrote Sex and the Catholic Feminist is to give people something very quick they could read to help young women and men not be hurt by this.
And it's a real blessing that you did this. And, even here it is 2020, and this has been going on over again. I know people who have had, they believed that contraception was good. And when they realized the evil of it, they were like, I was duped for so many years. I feel so bad.
Yes.
And it's so nice that you have a book that can share this now, because we got another generation of women that are being sold a bill of goods. So keep doing what you're doing, because it's important that people know the truth, and that's what sets us free, not this fake news stuff. So thank you.
That's right, and they're being targeted just viciously.
Yes.
I mean, they don't realize how much they're being targeted.
I agree, and that's why it's important, people, to get your book. Sue, can you tell us one more time that one website that they can get a discount for your book? I'd like people to get your book, please.
Catholic.market. And then just, if you Google Catholic.market and sex, it'll pop up immediately. And then you can get it at a big discount. You can get 2 or 3 copies, and you can get two copies, I think, are $10. And
that's great.
If you get a few, you can get it down to like $4 or $5.
I love it. And you're suggesting that, and this is, I thought I heard you say that maybe women can get together, like have a book club where everybody's reading and then have discussions. Is that? Do you know someone who's doing that?
We've done that here.
Oh, good.
I'm in Wyoming at Wyoming Catholic College.
Oh, great school.
And we've done that here. We've had 2 different groups, and the kids now have created another group. We're going to have another group with about 25 of them. So it's good to talk about it and see how it's affecting you and how to get out of it.
Sue, let me ask you this: moms that are listening right now with their daughters, what age group would you have them read your book?
Well, I'd certainly have mothers read it when the kids are 8 and 9, because these young women are being targeted at earlier and earlier ages. And once mothers know the full truth of this history and how it happened, so their eyes are open, so they can explain it to their girls more clearly. Yeah, I don't think you can start too early.
Good. Sue, you mentioned you're at the Wyoming Catholic College there, the new one that started maybe 15 years ago. I want to do a plug for them, so tell us a little bit about the school.
Oh, Wyoming Catholic College is one of the most beautiful colleges. There's only about 180 kids here, and this little town of Lander is 7,500 people. I just moved here last year, and the kids just came back. They're all back now. And you drive down the street, and we wave at each other. It's like one big giant family.
I love it.
It's such a small town.
Yes.
We all know each other. It's a beautiful, beautiful. We've got a Byzantine Rite chaplain here now.
Excellent.
And so we've got both. It's the only Catholic college in the country that has a Byzantine Rite chaplain. So we have both Latin Rite chaplain and Byzantine Rite chaplain. It's a beautiful place.
And how do people find out about the school? Is there a website we can drive people to?
Oh, sure. Just Google Wyoming Catholic College.
Perfect.
It'll pop right up.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a beautiful place.
Well, I'd like to visit it myself because I've heard nothing but good things about the school. And I know we have families always thinking, where should I send my kids if we're going to get them to college? Okay, getting back to your book, Sue, the people are doing, studies with women's group, but also who else should be getting this book? Or do you think maybe even some of our politicians who have been, to me, I think they need to get high information on what has happened in our culture too. Wouldn't you recommend that we send these to not just politicians, but even our priests, even our bishops? Because I think some of us have been duped to think that the culture, we got to give up. I mean, that's my take, because I've heard priests say, we've been trying to, bring out morality and we're doing our best, but, we lose. So my question is, isn't this a good book for priests and bishops to read?
Absolutely. And some of the priests that have read it have given it rave reviews.
Good.
So the younger priests are really on board. In fact, it was one seminarian that helped me focus this book. We sat in the backyard and had a little glass of wine.
Sure.
He helped me focus this book before it was even written. So yes, the younger priests are really getting this big time.
Oh, yeah.
And they see what we're dealing with. And yes, absolutely, let your priest have one. And you know what?
Tell me.
They're also in the backs, and they're in these kiosks in the backs of 7,000 churches across the country.
Now it's
the Augustine Institute.
Can I tell you? Now it's 8,000. I'm one of the founders of Lighthouse Catholic Media that we gave it to the Augustine Institute. So we're at 8,000 parishes. So I didn't know that. That's even better.
Wow.
Yeah, that's even better. Yeah, no, we started that in 2005 and was through St. Joseph Communications, and then we just kept growing. And I'm happy that we gave it to the Augustine Institute. They're doing a fantastic job in getting all the books out. They even have my book. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, Sue, I'm so happy that we had a chance to chat with you about your book. And, what I'm going to do is I'll get Gary to give me your number. We're going to probably have you on the Terry and Jesse show because we're also on a lot more radio stations on the East Coast that we should have people listen to what you're saying here. So I'll get back with you. But I do want to just recommend one more time that website, because you got to do it 3 times because people can't write it down each time. So one more time, how do they get your book?
Catholic.market. And then just write sex, S-E-X, and it'll come right up.
Awesome. Well,
Catholic.market.
Fantastic. Well, Sue, I want to thank you again for joining us. I feel like I just kind of stepped in to help Gary out, and I got a really blessing to chat with you. And I know our listeners are happy to hear about what you're doing. And the college, too, I can't say enough about the Catholic College in Wyoming. I know some of the friends from Thomas Aquinas out in California told me about plans for it, and I'm just glad that it's working. And almost 200 kids are there. Keep sending those kids there, folks, because this is where we're going to change the world from our young people. We're all getting old now, so we need more young minds working for the faith and working for the truth. Again, Sue, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We're out of time, so I want to say God bless you, and I'll be contacting you personally myself because Gary will give me your number, okay? Oh, you know what?
I'll give you.
Can I tell you something? I give my cell number out every day on the radio, 661-972-7872. That's my cell number, Sue. Love to chat with you. I'll repeat it, 661-972-7872. So we'll look forward to chatting, and I'm just delighted that I'm prepping for my show, which is coming up in 2 minutes. So I thought, what a great thing. I overheard, hey, the line went dead. This is radio, folks. It happens. You know what they say? Life is full of adjustments. Get used to it. Sue, thanks for being so amiable with us here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And I just want to wish you the best in your family and the school that you're up there in Wyoming. Beautiful Wyoming. What a great place to live. So I want to thank you again for joining us.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
God love you. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. That was Sue from amazing woman talking about how we've been manipulated. I read her book about a year ago, how Cosmopolitan, that terrible, I call it a pornographic magazine, but how she was able to come out of that and expose it for what it is, I think is quite a blessing. It reminds me of someone converting from like a Satanist into the Catholic faith, because that's what that is. All right, I hear the bumper music. That means we got another show coming, the Terry and Jesse show up next. I want to just wish Gary, thank Gary for allowing me to join him for this last segment, the pinch hit. I know he'd do the same for me. Hey, we got a great conference coming up, September 12th. This is a 4-part debate. The Ultimate Challenge, Father Benedict Rochelle, Dr. Scott Hahn, and Father Mitch Pacwa and Jesse Romero against 4 of the Protestants. Very civil debate. If you want to join us, just go to virginmostpowerfulradio.org or call us at 877-526-2151. That's 877-526-2151. And don't forget, Bishop Strickland, our new show is on every Tuesday, or you can go on the podcast by going to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Up next, those 2 crazy guys. Yes, the Terry and Jesse Show on Virgin Most Powerful Radio. We'll be back with much more to inspire you to fall deeper in love with Jesus Christ and his bride, the church.
In the 1990s, I lived and worked in Hollywood. But when my wife Betty's mom took ill, we relocated to Orange County. And it was during this time in our lives that I converted to Catholicism. Once my eyes were opened to the truth, I couldn't learn enough about the faith. But I had less free time than ever, especially with a long commute. That's when I discovered the real value of Catholic audio. Listening to cassette tapes transformed my daily commute into a miniature retreat. And that's the beauty of Virgin Most Powerful Radio today. Since the podcasts are archived, you can listen anytime on our smartphone app. I know how listening to Catholic audio can bring you closer to Christ and his church. So I encourage you to visit the App Store or go to vmpr.org and download the app today. It just might change your life. I'm Matthew Arnold for Virgin Most Powerful Radio.